Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in March. I read 7 books in March and I had quite a few 5 stars, quite a few 4 stars, and only one 3 star. The 3 star was my lowest rating of the month, so I had a really great reading month and I actually read one of my favorite books of all time this month and I'm so excited to just talk about all these books, so let's get on into it. The first book I read in the month of March was a reread for me, and that is Spiritbound by Rochelle Mead. This is book 5 in the Vampire Academy series. I first read this series when I was in high school, so about 6 or 7 years ago, so it's been so much fun revisiting. Honestly, I can't tell you much about this one because it's the 5th book, but I think it might be my favorite in the series. Like, these characters in this world never get old, and I just love all the, like, angst and the drama that happens in here, and, like, so much happens. Like, you think that you're finished and you're like, oh, we finally solved the problem, and then another problem arises and you're like, there is no rest in this world. But yes, like I said, probably my favorite in the series, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Blackbird Volume 1. This is obviously a manga, and this was actually my 3 star of the month. I'm kind of disappointed because the concept of this is really cool. It follows this 16-year-old girl, Misao, and she can kind of see this mythological world around her, so she can see all these demons and these spirits, and they always bother her. And there's this boy that can also see them, and she just wants to ignore the world and just find a boyfriend, and that's all she wants. I really love the concept of all the demons and the spirits and everything that's going on in this world, and because she is able to see this world, all these demons want to marry her so they can, like, rule over everything. The thing with this book is it has some very questionable things. Like the love interest, I think he's in his 20s and she's 16, so not cool. And then some other things were like questionable consent, like they would push her up against a wall and she would clearly say no and like have to push them away and like force them off her. So it was definitely questionable and some not great things in here, which is sad because the concept is really cool, but I definitely won't be continuing with the series. Let me know if you've read this and like if it gets better, but I just think that it was too weird and questionable. I keep saying questionable, but every time I would read something I'd be like, am I just like reading this wrong or is that actually happening? But yes, 3 stars, sad, love the concept, hate how it was executed. The next book I read was also a reread for me, and that is City of Lost Souls by Cassandra Clare. This is book 5 in the Mortal Instruments series. This is honestly probably my least favorite in the series. Might be my least favorite Cassandra Clare of everything she's written. This one is just kind of like boring. I feel like it's way longer than it needs to be and not a whole lot happens, and the things that do happen really annoy me, so I won't spoil in case you haven't read it, but the way that Jace is in this book, I know it's not his fault, but it annoys me so much and I hate reading about it. Also, Sebastian, I forgot how much of a creep he is. He's truly so creepy and just weird and not great. Like, he's one of those villains that's actually like, if you like him, it's kind of questionable because some of the things he does. But yes, I still love it because it's this series and I love Cassandra Clare and the Mortal Instruments and Shadowhunters and everything, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is my new favorite of all time, and that is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This comes out April 7th, so definitely go pick it up. So it's set in the 90s and it follows this book club of housewives, and they love to read about true crime, but they think that their lives are kind of boring, so there's this one lady who's just hoping that something more happens, and one day something a lot more happens, something that she was not quite expecting. Children across town start going missing and are being murdered, and there are rumors that maybe it's a vampire. Who knows? I absolutely loved how creepy it was. I actually had to put it down a few times because I was getting freaked out. I love the gore, so there is a little goriness in here and I just really love that. I love the vampire lore that was in this. I have never read vampires like this before. It was really amazing, and I also loved seeing the main character become like this housewife to this strong independent woman, because it is in the 90s, these are housewives, and so their husbands are really like misogynistic and just like controlling, and it's really cool to see these women like break out of those shells. I talked about this a lot in one of my reading vlogs, so I will leave that down below so you can go check it out. So I was literally hooked from the beginning of the prologue. The very first sentence says, "This story ends in blood." And I was like, let's go, let's get it. I am so ready. Also, this cover is absolutely amazing. I just cannot explain how much I love this so much. It took so many creepy turns that I'd never expected. Like, I just was expecting like your typical vampire, but there were so many different things that go into this vampire, and it's just really amazing. I really also loved the book club. I could read an entire story about these women reading true crime. I also got a lot of really great true crime recommendations to read. Loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. Please, please read it. The next book I read was The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So this follows Lucy Hutton and Joshua Templeman, and they have to work together and they hate each other. So it is a hate to love romance. Absolutely love it. This is one of my first adult romances I've ever read, and it was so good, so angsty, and so dramatic, and I just absolutely loved it. I flew through it. Also, Lucy is so me. Like, the whole time I was reading it, I was like, I say the same things, I do the same things, I think the same things. It's amazing. Also, while I was reading this, Joshua, the main character, I was just picturing Joshua from 17, so that was a wild ride. But yes, absolutely loved it and gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was a reread, and that is Last Sacrifice by Rochelle Mead. This is the 6th and final book in the Vampire Academy series, and unfortunately it's probably one of my least favorites. I felt like this was way too long. I think it's the longest, if not the second longest book in the series, and it is just way too long. Not a lot happens. There's so much waiting and waiting and waiting that goes into this. I still gave it 4 stars just because I loved how it ended, and I loved what was happening. It was just taking way too long for it to happen, if that makes sense. But I loved seeing how the characters really developed, and I can't wait to finally read the Bloodline series because I really loved Adrian upon my reread. So great. I also, in this book, forgot that there was cheating in here, so that was Dr. Starr. I won't tell you who, but the person that it was against made me really sad because I really like the person that it happened to. But yes, 4 out of 5 stars. And the final book I read in the month of March was Soldier Boy by Keeley Hutton. I did a whole vlog over this and how important it was, and I actually like cried in the vlog because I really went in depth with what this book is. So I will leave that down below so you can go watch it. So the gist of it is it follows child soldiers in the Ugandan Civil War. There are 2 points of view in this story, and the afterword here is actually written by Ricky Richard Anymore, and one of the points of view in the story is his, and it's his account of what happened when he was abducted at 15 years old and made into a child soldier. When Ricky was finally free of this war and finally was able to get out of being a child soldier, he started this foundation called Friends of Orphans, which helps rehabilitate children who have been abducted and forced into this war. The other point of view is Samuel. It is a fiction story based in truth, and it follows kind of a story about these children who are saved and brought into Friends of Orphans and how they have a lot of trust issues, and they're trying to figure out, can I really trust these people or am I being abducted again? And it's just really, really incredibly hard to read. I had to put this down so many times because I just cannot believe that children went through this. I'm starting to get emotional again just talking about it. This happens every time I talk about this book. But I will say it did end really hopeful, and I did a lot of research on the Ugandan Civil War and Friends of Orphans, and actually all the proceeds from this book go to help Friends of Orphans, which was really incredible, and I definitely recommend this if you can stomach it. I totally understand if you can't because it's really hard to read, but I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So these are all the books that I read in the month of March. I had a really great reading month. I reread 3 favorites. I found a whole new favorite book of all time with vampires, which I'm so excited about, and read some really great books. Let me know your favorite book that you read in March, and that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, my social media links will be down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!